Your knowledge of contract language is imperative.
You must know what a violation looks like if you wish to be active in its cessation.
It is important to understand that being active and knowledgeable affects your overall bargaining strength.
Together, we can forge a more militant NALC.
Good morning and welcome back to Parcels of Knowledge, the podcast dedicated to delivering knowledge to the city letter carrier with your host, the Roseville Wrecking Ball. Today, I got a special treat, of course. Mr. Corey Walton is going to be interviewed with your questions and answers that you've submitted to me. And, just like Corey, in old Corey Walton fashion, we're going to have a very long episode because he's got a tendency to give me long answers, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I know some people aren't necessarily a fan of that, but I think it's great. I love the more the better as far as I'm concerned. But all right, without further ado, here comes my interview with Corey Walton, and I'll see you on the other side. All right, so here we are on the other side. We're here with the boogeyman himself, Mr. Corey Walton. Would you please state your name for the record and introduce yourself?
I feel like that's an arbitration intro. Like I'm the witness. Yeah, Corey Walton, Branch 4, Nashville, Tennessee. How's that?
All right, that's perfect. Now I'm going to start. We're going to ask you a series of questions. Don't forget, it's postal regulation that you be honest and truthful during investigations.
Right. That's in the elm, right?
Yeah, I do believe so. There's a few different provisions they use when they feel like you're doing something funny, but
I got you.
I'm going to start with my text message ones, and then I'm going to go forward with my email ones. So
I
let's
want
see.
all of you. Bring them all to me.
Now
I want all the questions, the good ones, the bad ones, the tough ones. I want all of them.
Just to warn you, they're kind of unedited, and they're not in any particular order, so they're going to sound kind of funky sometimes.
That's all right.
All right, so this here says, looks like we're starting with the curveball first. Mike Cariff released a comprehensive fundraising and spending report last month. When is the CLC going to do the same?
Yeah, probably not. They've got, you can contact the CLC and go see their books whenever you want. And you can look up their tax returns at any time.
All right. I like short and sweet because this is going to be a really long one.
Yeah, that's all right.
All right, so the next one is, why does the CLC keep campaigning in Hawaii?
Well, we've only been there a couple of times. We went to their state thing, and then we went over there and did some training. But we have a lot of support in Hawaii. Got a lot of support across the country. We'll go. Whoever asks us to go, we'll go. But yeah, we went to a state convention there. Went to do some training in Kona, and so, hell, do you blame me? I'm on my dime. I'm paying my own way. So if they call me, come back again next year, I'll go back. But yeah, whoever asks us to come, we're going to go. And so that's just the way it is. Like I said, we're on our own dime, on our own time. And so I've been from coast to coast. And yeah, whoever asks us to come, we're going to come. But we have a lot of support in Hawaii, all the way across the country, Puerto Rico. We got a lot of support and everywhere in between. So yeah, we're going to go. Whoever asks us to come, if we can be there, we're going to go.
All right, I like that. What is your guys' bargaining strategy to get us a better raise, and will you back a wildcat strike if the members walk out?
Well, James Henry has a very strong stance on that. Whatever the membership wants to do, we're going to do it. We'll educate the membership on the pros and cons of every step. But if the membership decides that's what they want to do, they're the supreme body. We're not going to do like Renfro, obviously, and say, what does the supreme body think, and then do the exact opposite. We're going to do it the supreme body, what they dictate. And James Henry has said that numerous times, that when approached about, striking, stated that at the end of the day, it's up to the body. And if that's what they want to do, they're going to do.
And do you guys
Go ahead.
Do you guys have a particular strategy for getting a raise?
Yeah, I think that all the way everywhere we go, it's the same thing. Is that you got to look at the position, the Postal Service, and I say this all the time. Whoever listens to me knows that I state this all the time. Is that the Postal Service's position is they're always going to be broke. So you got to take that and put that aside. You can't listen to that. They're going to come out where we've lost $9 billion. We've lost all these things. You got to take that and ignore that. And I know Renfro puts a lot of stock in that. You got to pay attention to that. You got to take what they're saying, because that's who we're going against. That's who we're bargaining against. Their position will always be one of despair. It just always will. You got to take the things that we have in your arsenal as far as the Postal Reorganization Act of 1970. You know, you've got national arbitrators' decisions stating that the letter carrier does more, they deserve more. You've got to get out in the public. It's finally good to see Renfro talking about getting out in the public. We've been saying that for years. And he's finally, sounds like he's fixing to adopt that, get out into the public and make them aware of our plight. That's going to help a lot of things, especially with collective bargaining. But there's a lot of things that benefit us that we don't use. And I think that Renfro stepped all over himself in this last TA, and it's ultimately going to cost him his position. He will not overcome that. And so I think that's the reason you see the CLC, you have others coming out. You'll probably have more coming out to run against him, because they realize that that was a mortal wound to him. He will not survive that. But there's a lot of things that you do. The one thing you cannot do is take the Postal Service's position and make that gospel. And that's what's happened to us. And that's what's continuing to happen. If you listen to Renfro now, he continues to use that woe is me. But
Well, I consider that making management's case for them, because if
yeah,
you come to the table saying, yeah, this guy's broke, then now they don't
yeah,
even got to prove the burden.
yeah. Their job is easy.
Yeah.
I remember I had a manager tell me once that the postal inspectors come in there and they interview you, and they have tape of you, and they have all these things of you doing things. He said, I would never admit to nothing. He said, as soon as you admit to it, their job's over with. And
Yeah.
so I've
Yeah,
always
exactly.
remembered, even if it's me on that video, I'm going to say, that looks like me, but that's not me. Renfro has said, you know, he's made the position that, you know, the Postal Service is broke, so he's made their job very easy.
Yeah, that's
I'm
like,
not,
that's like me saying, hey, I'm sorry, my grievance, they really do deserve discipline, but
I've seen that.
yeah.
I've seen that in discipline before. We've handled arbitrations before where they have said that we're guilty and we deserve discipline, just not 2 years. Don't ever, don't ever do that, you know, because I can't call you as a witness now, because, you know, they're going to go straight to that and ruin us. But yeah, there's a lot of things in our favor, man. A lot of things in our favor that we do not use. And unfortunately, as bright as this kid is, the president, Renfro, as bright as that kid is, man, he is a fool when it comes to collective bargaining. And I think it's partly because he's never been in arbitration. He does not understand how that works, the give and take of it, the things that happen inside arbitration. He's heard about arbitration, but he's not done it. And I think that that's a huge problem for him. That's the reason I love James Henry. He's a legend as far as that's concerned. And he understands arbitration. When you get into those things, that management, when you go into arbitration, you have an opening statement. If we're doing discipline, management will go first, and they're going to make you sound like you're the worst individual that's ever been employed with the Postal Service. And I always tell the grievant that when you're going to say, now just sit there and relax, because you're fixing to be the worst person that's ever worked here. but I get my chance. So just let me do my thing. You sit here and relax and understand that you're fixing to be terrible to this arbitrator, and then let me do my job, because I'm fixing to make it that they're the ones that's the problem, not us. And that's what you have to do when you're talking about collective bargaining. The Postal Service is always going to be broke, and we're going to say they may be. But let's look at these things right here, and let's see why, you know. And
Yeah.
it's just a lot more to it. And unfortunately, we have a guy he's either too damn lazy or too damn stupid to understand what he's doing. And so.
Now, next one's a personal one. Did you attend Donald Trump's inauguration in 2024?
2024. Was that the first time he was elected?
No, I believe it was the second time.
No, I did not.
All right. So next question, they want me to. I know this person, and I think you know this person very well as well. But they want me to explain in a little bit different words the best way I could possible. This person's having a terrible time with understaffing, and what they're talking about is essentially they're from a small office, like 4 or 5 routes, something like that, and they got 4 or 5 individuals that work in that office. They need CCAs, but of course the CCAs are, they say, oh, well, they can put them wherever they want, so they don't decide to hire CCAs for them. And they always
Hmm.
have one spot on the vacation board, so having 5 guys for 5 routes with one spot on the vacation board, of course, you're going to have issues. Nobody's on the
Yeah,
ODL list.
yeah.
They're asking when it's mathematically impossible to not violate certain articles, like 8 and 5, I guess. This is their words.
Hmm.
Um, what is your? Do you guys have a plan to help offices like that? Because she says that C26693 awarded staffing as arbitrable, but her DRT says it's otherwise.
Yeah. That is a tough sell. It's a tough sell because, and we've taken this to arbitration before. When we went to Memphis and we did so well in that joint statement case, um, we implored the arbitrator to do that, to staff Memphis properly, because that was one of the biggest issues. And we had a very good position, and he wouldn't touch it. He said, that's management's sole responsibility is to hire and fire and the staff properly and things like that. Are there things that you can do with collective bargaining? Possibly, but that's a tough one for us as far as staffing stations properly, because the district handles that. They're going to send them, like my station, we never have Article 8 grievances. All my people are on the ODL. They want all the money that they can get. There's no reason to put a CCA at my station, and they'll send us 5. There's no
Okay.
reason to have them at my station.
Yep.
Send them to places. And JB has argued this before. We have several stations, Woodbine and West out of Nashville. They're constantly understaffed, constantly filing Article 8 grievances. Take those CCAs and put them out there. Not going to do it. And so, surely there's some way we can sit down, collectively when we get in there and have some kind of remedy for that, as far as taking that forward, as far as putting those in places, hot spots like you're talking about there, that need some relief. And there's got to be a remedy to that, truly.
So you're suggesting that should you take office, you'd be committed to possibly helping figure that issue out.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of people ask things, will we consider anything that the body wants to be considered, we're going to consider. That's the reason I love having a slate, is that you got people that understand the plight of the city letter carrier. That's the reason it's called concerned letter carriers. And so, yeah, they're not ignorant as far as what the city letter carrier needs and wants and things like that. And so everything will be addressed. Everything will be on the table.
I like that. Now, are there any members of current National Executive Council that you think are doing a good job currently?
Well, you have most of them stripped of their responsibilities. I think James Henry, I think Chris Jackson, I think Matt Julian are doing well. I love Dan Toth, but he's a yes man. And, he's going around now, tooting the same thing that Renfro does. And I like that guy. I think he's done a hell of a job for the city letter carriers. It's unfortunate that he's turned into a yes man. Barner, obviously, no. Renfro, that speaks for itself. Nicole, I think, is outstanding. Stephanie does a great job. Jim Yates, I think, is brilliant in the position that he's in. He was meant for that position. And so, but, business agents is another thing. I think half is good and half is sorry as hell.
Well, it looks
So-
like that's their next question. Which regions do you think get the most complaints about their NBA?
That's a tough one, man. they all get complaints, but you know, you can be the best of the best and still get a lot of complaints. You're not going to make everybody happy. Obviously.
Of course.
I would say 6 gets a lot, 2 gets a lot, 12 probably gets the most. I would say those are the tops. You got others that are just sorry as hell, but yeah, I would say that just straight up complaints. Yeah, probably those.
Okay. Well, do you have a plan to help alleviate the rampant noncompliance with the Postal Service?
Yeah, it's called national arbitration. You got a backlog of grievances, and I think that is one of the biggest contributors of noncompliance. Is that management is not concerned. Hey, look, as stupid as they are, they're very smart as far as this game. And so when you have 40,000 cases pending B, and you have, you know, in the contract, the DRT memo that tells you how these things are going to go step for step, and management interferes with that, we should have immediately taken that forward. We didn't. We sat on that, and now we're 40,000 deep. So we failed there. But you have management. I talked about this last week, I believe, where they come in. You have a DRT decision that says, in your installation, I always use opting because we have issues with that here. The opting grievances is $200 a pop now because it's become so egregious. And you have somebody from district tell the DRT members for them, hey, we're no longer selling those. We're no longer going to give those compensatory remedies. And so if they're not going to just say, we'll abide by, then send it up. Well, you're hijacking the grievance process. You're intentionally mucking that up when you do that, because Article 15 is clear. If I've got a decision and I have something that comes up that's the exact same thing, then that B team is the document that you're going to go by. That's what we use. That's the process. And when management says, hey, look, we're no longer going to go abide by Article 15, send those things up, they're playing us. And so, unfortunately, a lot of places have gone to, you know, we're not going to do cease and desist any longer. I read those things all the time on my podcast, you know, where they're not even going to say management violated. They're no longer going to do that. They don't want to have anything saying that they're wrong at any time ever, and that's our fault because we've got cowardice at the top that's allowed that to happen. And so, yeah, you need to take them to national arbitration and school them on that. And we've not done it. Now they're finally talking about doing it, but hell, we've gone from 6,000 under James Henry to 40,000 under Dan Toth. And, you know, they've played us. And it's devastating, the grievance procedure. And when you talk about non-compliance, you have all these things, 15, 17, Article 15, all these things, Article 41, that are in our favor, but it doesn't do any good if your grievances aren't being heard and they're sitting there for 10, 11, 12 months and, you know, no resolve. So they're crafty, you know, and they got us because you have incompetence, like I always say, on a biblical scale right now. But they're crafty little bastards on that other side, man. I mean, they've learned how to play us. And you know, I think the union and management to a degree are in cahoots with each other as far as these grievances, because when you got 9,000 pending arbitration, 40,000 pending B, and so you're not going to take 50,000 cases to arbitration. So what are you going to do? You're going to get these and you're going to wholesale them. If a carrier's due $200 because of an opting violation, you're probably going to end up with 25 or 50. And if you have 10 of those, you know, you're going to think, man, I made some pretty good money. You made about 10% of what you should have made. And so the Postal Service saves, the union saves, and the ones who get screwed is the city letter carrier, like I always say, the aggrieved. And so once the union puts the city letter carrier first, and that's what I've been saying for even before I was running for anything, you got to love the city letter carrier. You got to put the city letter carrier first. If you love the city letter carrier, everything else is going to fall into place. Even if you lose, you're going to win because you love the city letter carrier. You're going to educate yourself. If you're informal, formal, DRT, advocate, if you go into it saying, hey, I'm going to do everything humanly possible to protect my people, you're going to win. If you love the city letter carrier, you're going to win because you're going to educate yourself. You're going to have that mentality. I always use JB. He's got that mentality. He's going to win at all costs as long as it's ethical. And so, yeah, that's a long answer for short question, but yeah.
That's okay. We can have an hour and a half or two.
That's it. Bring it. I'm here all night.
Now, do you closely follow any other sports besides college football?
Not college basketball, college baseball. I don't like pro sports much because, you know, I used to back in the 80s and 90s, but I just think it's the money.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of ruined it. Like, I love pro boxing. My dad and I, we watch pro boxing religiously, and don't even watch that anymore. Quit watching that. I think it's been ruined, spoiled. And but yeah, I just love college sports. I love college football. I'm a Vols fan, so we're suffering right now. But I can. My son and I, my middle child, he works with me. He's a clerk at my station. You know, if there's a game on, we're watching it. If it's Tuesday night at 9 o'clock, we're watching it. If it's Thursday night at 11 o'clock, we're watching it. We just love college football. So.
Oh, nice. Now, let's see. Do you have a plan to change our weakened grievance process so management takes shop stewards seriously instead of continuously? You know what? This one is basically the non-compliance issue.
Yeah,
I'm going to go ahead.
You got to get rid of the backlog, and you've got to let the shop steward know that you've got their back. They do not know that, and I know that how. Just like you, I get emails and calls and texts, and they're getting no support.
The blood in the water.
Yeah, and you know, when you have 90% of the people that reach out to you are saying, hey, if it wasn't for you and other podcasts, I would get no education, that tells you the state that our union is in. When we went to Cleveland to the rap session, I was there that Friday at the reception, how many people came up to me and said, hey, we appreciate the podcast. It's the only education we've ever received. That's a shame. That's pathetic. And so the shop steward has to understand that they're the alpha. And to understand that, they've got to understand that their union, from the president locally to the business agent, has their back. They've got the resources. If you need me, if you have questions, I'm here for you. And, you know, I think MBAs have gotten lazy and fat and pathetic, and they've letting our shop stewards down. And that's the reason James Henry is going to wholesale that stuff. We're talking about major changes to the establishment, to the good old boy system, get people in there that want to fight. When I talk about street fighters, and I talk about, you know, those dogs, that's what I'm talking about. Is the shop steward has to know that they've got a friend in the union, and they don't. And so, yeah, I think when you get rid of the backlog, that's going to take a bit because that's a major fuck up. But when you do that, the grievance procedure starts working again. Shop stewards filing grievances. You get the B team back on track, and quit making excuses why you're so pathetic, and do your job. I think that, you know, I think it'll get back to running like it should.
All right. So here's somebody, they're going to say something about you, then ask you why. I guess they're assuming something here, but I think this person was at these two events and was hoping to hear from you. They said, why were you quiet? Why were you whisper quiet at the convention in Boston in last week's rap session? By that, I mean, why weren't you vocal at either of these two events during their general sessions?
Boston, I'll tell you, that's the national convention.
Yep.
I stood at the mic for 2.5 hours. I didn't get called on.
That's probably why you were quiet.
Did they want me to just go up there and say whatever? I'm not going to go. You got to understand, when you go up there, you're talking to somebody that will lie in front of the congregation, and he's proven to do so. And so if you're going to go up there just to be heard, that's stupid. And so, and I wasn't there for Cleveland. I was there at the reception, but he didn't take any questions there. I wasn't there for the rap session. I was in Chattanooga at a family function. So,
Okay. All right.
I think that I've probably spoken out more than anybody else.
Yeah, I'd probably have to agree with that.
I would say that. I would say that there's not one individual in the entire union that has spoken out more than I have about what's going on with the union. Now, do you want me to go up to a mic and just say something? You know, if that's what you want me to do. Give me a piece of paper, what you want me to say. And I'll go up there. But I stood at the mic for 2.5 hours in Boston with my finger on a button, waiting to be called, and wasn't. So.
All right. So, all right, this one's a long one. What more definitive action can you take as AVP to help combat the technological advancements the service is using against city letter carriers such as SIT, stationary inactivity times, sample requests, integrity scans, and radar? I understand we have the covert language and MOU language, but maybe develop something more concrete in our defense against GPS technology.
Yeah. What good is 134 of the M39? What good is it under this administration? Really? I mean, I don't know that you can have any language that's more clear cut than Section 134 of the M39 handbook. You can't spy on me. You can't use covert techniques. You have to accompany me on the street. You got to do all these things in an above board manner. You know, you can't treetop. I don't know that there's any language in any of the contracts, handbooks, or manuals that's more clear than that. There's a lot of gray area in all things, but there's none in that. And so why we didn't take that nationally to arbitration, because you can't lose it. If you lose, they're already doing it. You know, I think you should have taken them to task on that. As soon as, of course, we opened the door for that with the memos that came out in 1982, 83, 84, when under TRAP, our president agreed that management could use scanner data to question us as far as stationary events, and if we didn't have a good reason, they could delete that, which to me is catastrophically stupid. You don't ever come into an agreement on a memo that contradicts one of the strongest things we've got as far as management getting off their ass and coming out to the street and watching us, which is Section 134 of the M39. Why would you put anything in writing and sign anything that nullifies that does away with that? And that's what happened. And out of that was born these things with the scanners, the stationary events. How much have we heard of that the last 2 years since those memos? I told you about my friend Butch that was in management called me saying, what were y'all thinking? You know, they were waiting on that. And they were. They don't care about TRAP. That was over with the first go round. They wanted that language so they could abuse us, like the 22 minutes of load time. Parcel delivery, minutes on that. You don't ever put times on memos. And then when you tell your president, hey man, they're bludgeoning us down here, he tells you that it's an inconvenience. You don't ever say that to your constituents. You don't ever say that to the body, to the people that pay your salary, that anything's an inconvenience. You should have come down off your high horse and started raising hell for us, but you didn't, because you were in agreement with that shit. But I think nationally, we should have taken that and saying, hey, is 134 of the M39, is that applicable or not? When it talks about spying and using covert techniques, what do you translate that to mean, Mr. Arbitrator or Madam Arbitrator, when you see that? Would management sitting at a desk watching you on a screen and then questioning you about that, is that spying? Is that covert? I would have to have him tell me no, and why not? You know, I think it's as clear-cut language as you can ever get.
Do you think it's too late to take that nationally once you guys get office?
You got National Arbitrator Menthal's decision where he talks about ongoing grievances. You know, I would give it a shot. I would just do it. It's still going on. Just because we had cowardice before, I would give it a shot. I would take a shot and use National Arbitrator Menthal's decision. Maybe it doesn't apply. I say it does, about continuing grievances. And yeah, I think it's too important. And the carriers have been devastated.
Absolutely. We're counting on you.
Well, look at Eugene Gates Jr. Look at him. I mean, he's the perfect example when you look at it. They gave this man discipline. He's been here. He's fixing to retire. Never been disciplined. They give him discipline based off of scanner data. And I said this story back when I had the episode. We can tell him, look, Brother Gates, it's not going to stick. It's not going to stick. But what is he thinking? Well, I'm fixing to retire. What if I get fired and lose my retirement? So I'm going to skip everything because management's spying on me now and has issued me discipline. The union keeps telling me that they can't, but they have. It could be a year before it gets heard. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to go out there and I'm going to skip my lunches and breaks because I can't afford to be disciplined again. You get scanner messages saying, hey, keep it moving, beat the heat. And now my brother's dead. And you've got a funky-ass president saying that that's an inconvenience. Yeah, you've got to fight, period. You fight. I don't give a damn what it is you fight. And if you lose, so be it. We fought. But you've got to fight for the city letter carrier. You cannot have this shit come up and you just sit there and say, hey, man, y'all handle it as best as y'all can. No, sir. No, we pay good dues money. You got stations that don't know how to fight it, have never been educated. If it wasn't for these podcasts and Facebook, they would never get education on shit like that and just get run over. And, so, yeah, I say you fight every damn thing you can fight. Just like hip training, should have fought that. Just like certifies on DPS, should have fought that. But we have this we may lose mentality that has crippled our union. You cannot have the mentality of we may lose. And I've heard that so much with this administration. Well, we may lose that. Well, who gives a fuck? Fight. Now you're going to say fight like hell because your job's in jeopardy. Where was this 3 years ago when all this stuff was coming out against your city letter carriers? Where was this fight like hell mentality then? Where's the red shirts 3 years ago when we had people dying in yards because management was doing something that was against our handbooks and manuals? Where was your fight like hell? What about HIP training? When they falsified that and continue to falsify it today, where was your fight like hell then? So many things that we could have fought like hell for, but we didn't do that until our job was in jeopardy, and now we want to fight like hell. But yeah, to me, you fight. Everything they do, you fight. That's the reason I love JB as my Formula A for Nashville. Management can't do shit, and his foot ain't in their ass. I mean, everything they do, he's fighting. That's the reason Nashville is under control. It's because you have a Formula A that's running this city, not management. So, yeah, I'm long-winded on these answers, ain't I, brother?
Oh, that's okay. I'll take it as long as it needs to be.
Yeah, but you got to fight it, man. You got to fight these things. You got to let them know every time they do something, you're going to fight it. Like the one out, these metrics. I don't understand why we let that go. 1 hour office time, it's in writing. They put it in a book of theirs. A 1 hour metric. Why didn't we address that? Why didn't something come out about that? It was talking about stationary events and those metrics. Why didn't we fight that? Why didn't we address that? We didn't, And so we're our own worst enemy. We're so afraid of losing something we won't even fight. So
yeah, and the saddest part about it is most of the time the membership will see it as us sleeping at the wheel because they just don't know what's going on.
Sure. Hey, we're pushovers, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
So next question. This is asking, does James Henry make the decision on who gets to be a CLC candidate?
You talking about business agent or whatever?
Yeah, all the people on his slate.
Yeah. But yeah, that's his ultimate decision. He's the president. That's who he's going to put in place. So yeah, but James asked a lot of questions, and that's the reason I love James. It's not solo. Anytime you got somebody solo, like Renfro, he did his thing solo. He didn't take into consideration anything. So anytime somebody's doing something solo, be concerned because they think that they're above everything else, and it's their word and nobody else's. James not like that. He consults with everybody. He asks a lot of questions. He does a lot of interviewing. And so, yeah, people are vetted over and over and over again. And I think you can see that by the slate he's put together. I don't see one weakness in this slate when you're looking at it. I see all strengths. And so, I couldn't be more excited about it. But no, he doesn't do anything by himself.
Okay. So this is the last text message question. Then we'll move on to emails. So this is, could you ask Corey how many people listen to his podcast now versus at its peak? Most people I talk to seem to think that basically that they don't listen to him as much. So
I think that it's both ways. I think that a lot of people that used to listen, I think that the language has gotten to them, and so they don't. But I also hear a lot of people saying, hey, everywhere we go, we're telling people to listen. And so, I think it's probably about the same. You lose some, you gain some. I think that the education part got everybody listening because, I thought it was pretty decent education, putting it out there for people that, never dealt with a lot of things. And then I see that my carriers are in trouble, and then kind of the language came in. And so, but then you'll go places and they'll say, hey, keep cussing. You'll have something, hey, I don't listen anymore because of the cussing, but I appreciate the education. So I'm just going to be me. If you and I sat down, I don't cuss. During the week, I rarely ever say a cuss word. But when I get agitated because of what's happening to my people, yeah, I do. And it comes out in the form of profanity. Would I rather not? Yes. But I think that it's I lose some and I gain some. Like I said, everywhere I go, coast to coast, whenever we go somewhere, people are saying, hey, I'm getting all my people to listen to you. I'm telling other branches to listen to you. I'm doing this. I lost a lot of support from business agents and branch presidents who were on my side when I was educating. And so I lost all their support, when I started coming at them, but I don't care. But like I've always said, if it's just one person listening, I'm going to do it. If one person said, hey, man, I can get past the cuss and I just need you to help me with some things, I'm going to do that. And so, it really doesn't bother me. I didn't get into this for fame. Damn sure didn't do it for fortune because I lose money. I charge, they charge me $30 a month to do it, to put it up. And, going across the country with James on my own dime. I've been in an AWOL status for about 3 months now because I'm out of leave. And, so definitely don't do it for the fortune of it. I'm doing it because my city letter carriers are hurting. And so I'm going to do everything I can to help. If I win, I win. If I don't, I'm going to keep doing from 8 arbitration. I'm going to keep delivering mail. It's that simple.
That makes sense. All right. So now we move on to the email questions. So this person's an informal A, it looks like, and they're asking you, how would you handle a formal A representative consistently withdrawing or settling grievances as no violation, even though the file shows a clear violation is explained in explicit detail?
Yeah, you've got to contact the branch president if they don't help. Unfortunately, you've got to contact your business agent. Most of them are sorry as shit. And so you just got to go up the chain of command. And I deal with this a lot. A lot of people message me saying, hey, I had one message me talking about we put the case file together and the formal A doesn't even include it in their contentions. They don't even put the informal A position in there, contentions and all. They just do their own and they say the same thing. And they withdraw most of them because they say that the president or the postmaster, they get into the meeting, the Formal A meeting, and the postmaster says, well, I didn't do that. And I'm like, well, does the Formal A call you? No, they don't call. They just withdraw it. I said, so they're just taking the postmaster's word? Yep. That's where we're at in a lot of places. We got to get that corrected. And so you got to vote in presidents that are going to support you. My president, to me, is the best one in the country, Dana Chambliss. I think she's the toughest president there is. She don't take no shit. You need more like that. You need Formal A's like JB. And so, unfortunately, as an informal step A, when you have a grievance, you put it together, you have all the time to investigate, 14 days. You do the investigation, you request the information, you go in there, you discuss it with the supervisor, who rarely ever will settle. They'll send it up to the Formal A, and if you've got a sorry-ass Formal A, we're in trouble. And if you go to the president, who's probably appointed the sorry-ass Formal A, and say, hey, they're settling all my shit, it needs to go forward, they're probably going to side with the Formal A. If you go to the business agent, most of them are too damn lazy to do anything, or they'll take the president's side, and the informal's just screwed. And if the informal's screwed, the station is screwed. And so that's where we're at.
All right, so this one looks like we got a couple more for the CLC. Every time I get one of these interviews, normally they're asking you guys questions that fit the whole bill instead of just you. So, last contract was massively disappointed. Of course, all candidates will bargain for higher pay or better working conditions, but do you guys have specific demands that the CLC will take into the next round of collective bargaining yet?
Yeah, I do think that, you have these, you got BFN doing a survey, you got all these surveys, you pretty much know. Hell, I deliver mail, you pretty much know what it is. You got 2 pay tables. How ridiculous is that? That's CCAs. What are we doing there? Why do we not have an all-career workforce? The CCA position, it's no longer relevant. Back when Rolando and them came into an agreement, you kind of get it, but we need to move on from that. Those things, when you talk about that, I use Renfro's language, are non-starters. They've got to be. You've got to have those core set of things that, to you, are non-starters. We need a substantial starting increase. I agree with Renfro on that. But you cannot sell us out. You can't use that as a ploy to kick this can down the road for 700 days and then fuck us over. Those are things that are musts. And when you say that they're must, that means that the Postal Service says that they're not going to do that, you go to arbitration, period. And James has already said that. 150 days, we're going to arbitration. You won't see this shit ever again as far as 300 days, 400 days, 500, 600, 700 days. James has already said 150 days. We're getting dates, getting an arbitrator. We're going forward. You know what you need. This is nothing new. You know what you need, And so, yeah, we'll all get together, hammer that out. You have a law firm that will help you with that. I say you get in those books, which we will. And to me, I want to see what you got, and we'll go from there. But it'll be a whole different mindset with James Henry, as far as arbitration. To me, I love arbitration. I want arbitration. I don't agree with my union right now that to be scared of it, and so. All
right. So this next person, they have concerns. They said, given its origins, so I'm assuming that they are talking about that there are players that come from California. They said, given its origins, will the CLC heavily favor the Californian carrier over the national one if elected?
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. No. You got Tennessee, Texas, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Washington, Pennsylvania, New York, Hawaii, Texas. They're all represented. So what we're going to do, we're going to say, we're going to favor California and all the others that have been with us for thick or thin, get in line. No. It's the concerned letter carriers. And I know that was a big to-do with a certain camp when they split off from us, that was their thing. That was their shtick, it's the California letter carriers. That's ignorant. That's ignorant. To think that James Henry, everything that he's ever done for the city letter carrier, that he would be that way is a slap in his face. To think that I, from Nashville, putting all this money on the line that I've had to pay out to go across the country to try to help the city letter carrier, a podcast that's nationwide, to say that I'm going to get in there and we're going to favor a state over another, idiotic. Absolutely untrue. And I know where that's coming from, and they should know better, but they don't.
All right. So next one is, presume Step B remains messed up, regardless of the election. What are the actions and mechanisms local stewards can use to stop grievances being blindly kicked up by management?
It's going to take a national arbitration. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing. We control the steps, but the hell, they don't even have to meet. We see that now. Management doesn't even have to show up. We're sending things up from Formal A, no meeting, no nothing. And unfortunately, you got some of these B teams that'll kick it back down. Once you have a position, once that you sent your position up to B, don't think that the B team for them is not sending that position to labor, for labor to help the Formal A at the lower step get a position together. Don't think that's not happening. And so they're giving them a second bite at the apple. So, you have informals not meeting. You have people reaching out to me. I don't know if they do you, but you have regions reaching out to me. The informal doesn't meet. The formal doesn't meet. They're sending it up to the DRT, who's making 100% of the argument, or sending it back down, giving them a second bite at the apple. The whole thing is fucked. Yep. The whole process is screwed. And so we should have been dealing with that 2 years ago. Rather than what we have now. So it's a shit show now. And it's going to take a lot of damn work, but it will be handled. And so should have had a national level grievance 2 years ago. Like I said, now they're finally talking about possibly doing one, which is unbelievable. But, management's played us. You got to give them credit. They've played us. And so.
Well, while we're on the topic of Step B, I'll ask this other question too. What do you think about the no ex parte communication thing that we observe in Step B, considering the fact that management clearly doesn't observe it on their end? Do you think that we still need to uphold that in the future?
Well, sure. And that goes back even when I was at Formal A in 2008 to 2010, and I went back and did another stint after that. We went and ate with the DRT every Wednesday. It's Fred Qualls and a guy named Savage for them. And we would go eat with them every Wednesday when I was doing Formal A. And they would talk about that. The postmaster would come in berating the DRT for them. District managers would go in there berating them for their decisions. So this isn't anything new. This has been happening for a long time. Yeah, so what do you do about it? Is that going to take a national level decision? Can you sit with people across the table from them and say, hey, they don't need to go in there and talk to them?
Yeah.
That sounds good, but you also have, you got managers and postmasters that refuse to abide by the JSOV. You would think that it would be as simple as district managers going in there and telling their people to quit acting a fool. They're not going to do it. They'll never police themselves. They like it just the way it is. Management's got it made right now just the way it is. It's going to take some people getting in there and fighting their asses off to get this thing turned around. So that's the reason I was saying last week, you better hope and pray James Henry gets in there, because you're going to need street fighters right now. You're not going to need people that talk really well and talk smartly. Those days are over with. You need street fighters in there that understand the process, understand the situation, and are going to deal with it. And however long a day it takes, however many days it takes, that are going to get in there and understand the mission. And so that's where we're at, is that management has played us. They continue to play us. They understand that the system is broken. All hell's breaking loose on the workroom floors through the grievance procedure. The informals are a shit show. The formal A's in a lot of places are. The DRT isn't doing their job for them. They've hijacked all of that, and now you have 40,000 cases pending B. And who's eating the brunt of that? The city letter carrier. There's no resolution, on our side. There's no remedy. And well, now they're talking about finally taking something to national arbitration. So yeah, it's a mess. There's no other way around it. It's a mess. They've got us. And so.
All right. So what is the best food in Tennessee? If we roll through, what unique dishes should we order?
That's tough, because we're really not known for anything. We're just kind of a hodgepodge of things. If you go to Nashville, if you go there, I would eat at a meat and three. Those are usually pretty good. Memphis, obviously, it's the barbecue. But
I love that Nashville chicken.
Hot chicken?
That they call it Nashville chicken at KFC. I don't know if it has anything to do with Nashville, but man, it tastes good.
Well, Nashville hot chicken, that's what we're known for, is the hot chicken, but I don't like hot stuff, so I don't eat that. But
okay.
Yeah, Nashville hot chicken, but everybody does it now down here, hot chicken. So that's popular. But normally I just like a steak, something like that. And I'm getting older and heavier, so I'm kind of having to back off a lot of the things that I like. I don't go out there as much, and because I don't want to be fat, and so.
All right. So these two questions I'm going to lump together. I'm going to ask them both together because I think they kind of go hand in hand. The first question is, what does the CLC plan to do about corrupt local branch officials? And the second question is, I know there is a Dogs of War plan. Is there something similar to protect us from the good old boys branches?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because you're talking about interfering with local elections, and that's a tough sell to a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
It ain't a tough sell to me. If you're not doing your job, I think you need to lose your job. And I said that the other day when I was in Atlanta. Is you're not doing your job, you should lose your job. We're in this, should be, for one reason only, to protect city letter carriers. That's it. There is nothing else. There is no other motive. It's to protect city letter carriers. And so, when I started this podcast, I was naive. And because my president is so strong, Dana, and my Formal A is so strong, JB, I'm thinking, I'm just going to have to come in here and just, talk about a few things and help a few things and discuss what I've been doing, grievances that I've won through the years, and then quickly realize, man, we're in trouble. The city letter carrier is in trouble because not only they're not getting representation, they have the good old boy network that's crippling some of these branches, and in a bad way. And they're putting people in place that are not going to fight for anybody. And so there's got to be something. I don't know what James' position on that. That'd be something need to be asked of him. But what are you going to do when you have branch presidents that are just sorry as hell? And we have them. And so what do? Do you interfere in those elections? Do we go down there and talk to them and say, hey, what's up? Why is it that we have so many complaints coming out of this branch? Your business agent should be doing that. Your business agents should be doing that, but your business agents are scared of votes. And so if you piss off a branch president, are they going to tell their carriers that you're not worth a shit as a business agent and jeopardize maybe your livelihood? You can't worry about that. You always do what's right. And so business agents should be contacting these branch presidents that ain't worth a shit, saying, hey, I'm going to come eat lunch with you. We need to talk about some things. And, I've always said that if you're not going to get in line, we'll go around you. We'll circumvent you. And if I've got to send in outside stewards to represent these carriers, that's what I'll do. And if you tell your people don't vote for me, so be it. I'll go back to carrying mail with my head held high, knowing that I did everything humanly possible for the city letter carrier. But there's a lot of avenues. It's just a lot of people are so worried about stepping on people's toes. I had that episode a couple of years ago. I said, fuck your toes. You know,
Yeah,
you got to step on toes.
my episodes kind of get branches upset too, because it oftentimes they teach carriers things that their branches don't really want to facilitate, you know, like grievances that they think are not grievances, and
Yeah.
it gets kind of muddy, I'll tell you that. I'm sure you already know.
Yeah. Your MBA should be directly involved with that. Problem is, these MBAs are the same way, a lot of them. So, you know, you talking about good old boys, a lot of them are the same damn way.
I don't disagree. All right, so these next three questions are very similar, so I'm going to put them together. Do you prefer walking or mounted? Which route are you on? And what's your favorite time of the year to deliver?
Walking. That's all I've ever done. I've got, you know, got a little bit of mounted, maybe 10% of my routes mounted, but I love walking. The station that I was at, I've been to two stations, Ackland and Belmead. Ackland, I was arbitrarily assigned to a T6 string and stayed on that, and it was all walking. And then I bid to Belmead in 2001, and Route 11, it's all walking. And so I would much rather walk. Now, after 30-something years, it's taking a toll on your feet, your ankles, your knees, your hips. I've got arthritis in both my hips, arthritis in both my shoulders. My elbows are bad, my knees are bad, my ankles are bad, my feet's bad. So, you know, it's taking a toll. But I love all seasons. Obviously, fall and spring, you know, weather-wise are the best. I don't mind summer, even though it's hot. You know, you just learn to deal with it. I love sweating. Winter's probably my least favorite because, you know, we don't have a lot of snow down here, though. So very rarely do we have to deal with ice or snow. But when you do, all hell breaks loose in Nashville. If it's a quarter inch of ice or snow, the whole city shuts down. You know, and I went to Buffalo a few years ago, and they were, you know, cleaning the streets, and there was about 10 feet stacked up on each side of the road. I was like, my God, what would Nashville do with that? But because we don't deal with it, you know, we don't drive in it. They, you know, they'll get out there and drive in. If it's 15 feet of snow, they're driving in it, and we don't have to deal with it. But winter's probably my least favorite just because we don't know how to act. But
man, winter's my favorite.
It is.
Yeah, we got the snow here, but you know, it's way easier to get warm than it is to get cold. So I hate the summer because there's only so many things you can take off. You still got to wear a uniform. So
yeah, I like sweating though. I feel like that cleanses the body, and it's really the only time I'll drink a lot of water. You know, when it gets winter, I don't drink a lot of water. I drink cold drinks, which is terrible for me.
all right. So next question, we got a carrier here, and they're saying that they're going to split the ticket with their vote. They're saying that they're going to vote for you and then vote for Mike Cariff. That's what they're saying, that those are where their values are. And they're asking that if that wins, are you committed to putting letter carriers above any differences you guys might have? And also, are you willing to speak to your willingness to work collaboratively with anybody, including, because I got another question later on down the line. I'm just going to lump this in. They ask, would you be able to work with him or Renfro should any of those two win?
Yeah, that's very easy. James Henry's going to win, and it won't be close. But to answer the question, if you love the city letter carrier, if you put the city letter carrier first, it really doesn't matter. Now, will I be able to do the things that we've been talking about? Because nobody else has talked about doing the things that James Henry and I have talked about. Nobody. About addressing the workroom floor. Nobody's talked about that. All these other things. Nobody's talked about that. So, yeah, I mean, vote for who you want to vote for. Obviously, James Henry's my choice, you know, just because of his plan and things like that. But, you know, Renfro's, I don't even know that he's going to run. But I'm going to put the city letter carrier first. I've always said, you know, if we get in there And somebody, an MBA or whoever, has constantly said Corey's a piece of shit. I hate Corey. He's this and that. I'm going to work with him. I don't have any issue with that, because what are we there for? Your pride? I don't care about your pride. I don't care about your feelings. I care about one thing only, the city letter carrier. And that's it. And it's hard for a lot of people to understand that, unfortunately. It's hard for the establishment to understand that. There's got to be an ulterior motive. He's not just going to be a city letter carrier and then be EVP. There's got to be maybe it's the money. I don't need that money. My wife does very, very well. And so it's hard for them to understand that somebody legitimately loves the city letter carrier and is going to put them first. So it doesn't matter. Renfro, whoever. I'm going to put the city letter carrier first. Now, will I have all my duties stripped from me? Probably, because I've talked a lot of shit. But don't worry about splitting the vote. James Henry's going to win. People don't need to concern themselves with that. He's going to win, and it won't be close. I'm telling you that. It won't be close. And so James has the integrity. I've always said that's what you want. That's what we need. More than anything, that's what we need. He's the only one that's got it. And then he's got a plan for the workroom floor. I've not heard anybody with a plan for the workroom floor but James. And so, but, it is what it is.
Now, this next person's talking about the Postal Act that talks about 6-day delivery. They mentioned that it has an exception for emergencies. And they're asking, do you think it's possible to negotiate administrative leave days for extreme weather conditions so we won't have to have any more Eugene Gates cases?
That's a great question. And I love that question. Because here's what I think we fail when you talk about it. And then I've talked about this a little bit when I was dealing with the National Safety Committee and the Area Safety Committee and the district. And you go to them and you say, hey, to help out when it gets extreme heat, what's the game plan we can come up with to protect my carriers? Now, Postal Service doesn't care. They're in air conditioning. They don't care. They don't deliver. So it's not a priority to them. Those that deliver, it's a priority to them because they understand the issues with that. We have people dying. Management had one put in the back of a vehicle to go do a $39.99 for some reason in the summer, and they died. And so what did NAPS do? NAPS started raising hell about putting them in an unsafe position. Where every day we're in that same unsafe position. And so I was telling them they can stick their DPS. Anything to do more in the office where we're in the air conditioning than on the street we're in that vehicle that's 150 degrees. So tell them that they can stick their DPS. That's just one thing we can do. And what they say, no, Ops doesn't want that because it will affect your efficiency. So they're more worried about their numbers than they are the city letter carrier. Right? So that's the mindset you have to understand when you talk about what can we do with management. They're more worried about the numbers than they are your safety. You talked about Brother Gates. That's the perfect example. They changed the start times for just a little bit, just to show, hey, we're doing something, then immediately changed them back. They don't concern themselves with our safety. So yes, a permanent time change, start time in the summer. Why are we not fighting for that nationwide? You could delay mail one day, and then you could have it on track for the rest of the summer. One day, you could do that. And then say, from here on out, you're coming in at 7 to get you out of that heat. And so we don't do that. Sticking to DPS, don't do that. A lot of things that you can do when it gets to a certain temperature to say, we're going to postpone the delivery of mail. It's no longer a priority. You see all over the country, they say they come in and they don't even have their DPS, or they're telling them to leave entire routes. The delivery of mail is no longer a priority to the Postal Service, as crazy as that sounds. So why don't we use that to our benefit? In the summer, we need to do everything humanly possible to protect our people. The Postal Service doesn't care about us. We need to do that. Whatever kind of task force we need on that, with ideas that we can come and sit down with the Postal Service and say, hey, during the summer months, June, July, and August, these are the things we're going to implement to protect our people. Why do you care during June, July, and August? You can't use that for anything. You can't use that for any kind of route data. It's exempt. December, you can't use that. And so June, July, and August, why do you care? You know,
And
let's protect our people. And what do we need to do that?
I think even if they did decide to close the doors for extreme weather days, most areas, whether it's frostbite or extreme heat, most areas, they wouldn't be closed more than a couple days a year.
Yeah, yeah. And you could sell that to the public. You could sell that. Say, hey, when it gets a certain temperature, my carriers are in danger, and we're going to protect them. We'll protect them. You can have parcel delivery still, if that's a concern. The carriers aren't out there walking, sitting. We're the only ones that do that. If you look at UPS, they don't do that. So.
All right.
And walking routes are, to me, that's all I've ever done. I'm much safer on a walking route than I am a riding route, mounted. I'm out there creating my own breeze. I have shade trees. You got shade porches. In that vehicle, you're stuck in 130 degrees for 8 hours. Go put something in your oven, turn it on 130 degrees, and put it in there for 8 hours and take it out. See what it looks like. That's you. And you're clothed. So, yeah, that's where we're at. So, there has to be a remedy to that. You have to have some kind of task force to say, let's get with the service and say we're going to protect the city letter carrier. And these are the things that we're going to attempt to implement. And it's, like I said, permanent time change during June, July, and August. Why do you care? Like I said, you can't use that for 6-day counts. They do $39.99 during the summer. Why? Why would you do that? You can't use that. And so, anyway.
Yeah. All right. That's a good answer. Well, what do you think about stewards with FMLA? If a steward appears to be abusing leave, is it fair for the people they represent?
It's none of my business. You're talking about federal law. I will never address that, ever. I'm not going to let management do it. I damn sure ain't going to do it. If management goes after a carrier for FMLA, what are we going to do? Raise hell, right? I'm not going to let you address a carrier with FMLA. They've gone through the proper procedures to get that. Anytime management goes in there with an attendance-related issue, where they say, you need to get FMLA. So if they have FMLA, if it's justified, if a doctor said that they have FMLA, it is what it is. Now, you can tell them to give up that position and give it to somebody who doesn't have FMLA, that's somebody that will give a constant presence on that working floor. I do believe that stations need to have a constant union presence on the floor. Those that don't have a constant union presence on the floor get taken advantage of. And so, yeah, I do believe that. But FMLA, I'm not going to address that. That's law.
Yeah.
And so, if a carrier's done what they need to do and they've got an FMLA condition, who am I? I'm no different than management if I tell them that they shouldn't be a steward. I'm no different than management. I get the frustration on that if somebody has FMLA and they're constantly there and you're like, fuck, our floors without union representation. I get that. I'm not going to touch that. You need to address that with the president and say, hey, we love the individual, but they got FMLA, they're never here. We don't have a constant union presence on the floor. Maybe we need to look at swapping that out, changing that out for somebody who is here. And then you got to have somebody that'll step up and do it.
Yeah, it's understandable. All right. So this next two questions, I already know the answer, but I'm just going to go through the motion of asking because, I don't want to turn anybody's questions down. Lou Drass on his podcast accused you of running for Region 8 business agent against Steve Lassen a long time ago and then backed out. Can you explain what happened?
As far as what, backing out?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
He asked me to be the director of city delivery.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I was gonna be the business agent in Region 8. That was a foregone conclusion. We need change down here more than ever. You talking about good old boy? This region? Talking about running things with pride, which has hurt the city letter carrier. Look at New Orleans, the shit show that is. We got to have a change here. So I was going to do that. I've always said, I'm not going to tell y'all to fight and then me just sit back and watch y'all fight. That's not how I was raised. And so I was going to be NBA. And that was a foregone conclusion. I was going to win that. And then James asked me to be director of city delivery. And so, said I would do that. And then later on, we had talked with another individual about being an executive vice president. They initially said they would. And then they said they had some personal issues, and so they couldn't. And then the more James and I talked, man, it's like, we're walking to the beat of that same drum. We're on the same level as far as what we're going to do on this workroom floor. The passion he has for the city letter carrier, the integrity, which is, I think, numero uno, integrity. And he's the only one that's got it. And so, yeah, chose EVP. But no, I was going to be the MBA for Region 8. That's my home, And I wanted to do that. But when he asked me to be director of city delivery, I chose to do that. And I like Lou. Lou's a smart guy. And,
It's funny you mentioned that. It's funny you mentioned integrity is number one, because that's actually the next question.
Mm-hmm.
How important is integrity and credibility for the NALC candidates?
It's the utmost importance. It's the utmost important. So yeah, I think integrity is right there at the top. Everybody at that level is smart. I've said that years ago. Everybody there is smart. They're all smart. They've all done their thing. They're all smart. It's what happens when you get in there is the problem. Is you saw that a lot of them have bent over in front of Renfro and have sided with him over the city letter carrier. And, that deals with your integrity. You were sworn to protect the city letter carrier, and you didn't. And so I think that integrity is one of the most important things that you've got.
All right, so we're actually in the last stretch. We probably only have about a little bit less than maybe about 10 questions. So, all right, so what is the best way to address the problems around the gatekeeping of education and training?
What we're doing here, you got, one of the things I love about James Henry again is he's bringing in the director of education. He's bringing that back, Paul Bolanger. And the ideas he has for educating not just stewards and Formal A's and DRTs and advocates, but the workroom floor. And I've always said you've got to educate the workroom floor. You have an educated workroom floor, it makes the job for the shop steward a lot easier, because like my workroom floor is very educated, and so when there's an issue, they'll come up to me and I'll go to the manager and we'll hammer it out right there. It doesn't always have to be a grievance. They'll say, hey, they're doing this. You go to them and say, hey, what's up with this right here? I'll fix that right now. Okay. And so an educated workforce, like I've always said, is a devastating thing. And that's why. And so you've got to educate the working floor. I do not understand gatekeeping. I do not understand that at all. It makes no sense for your union to, they give you these little portions, these little, morsels of education. And then you have to go somewhere to get education. You got to pay money to go get education. And, look at just from aid arbitration, what's happened with that, the education that it's put out. And now you've got all these other podcasts that are doing, look at yours, doing fantastic education. So the city letter carrier has saved the city letter carrier. And that's what's happened when you talk about this movement. The city letter carrier has saved the city letter carrier. And that's where we're at. We just got to get the CLC in there, James Henry, and us in there to fix the grievance procedure and a bunch of other shit. But to fix that, which we will, and, you just keep educating. James Henry understands the importance of education. That's one of the reasons I agreed to come on and do what I'm going to do, is because that's his thing. Education. And you look at his resume. He's the only one that has done the things that he's done. And that's the reason I love that guy, the passion he has for educating the city letter carrier. And that's obviously one of mine because this podcast. So.
All right. Can you explain your thoughts on different methods and approaches in order to effectively negotiate with management? For example, either combative and hostile is one, or respectful yet determined is another. How should we be dealing with management?
Well, it depends. I mean, if you're dealing with management that has a history of those things, that's what the dogs of war is for. The days of talking are over, and we're no longer going to negotiate or try to work with those individuals. Now, once it gets to the level of the dogs of war coming in, those days it's going to be turned over to them, and they're going to address it, and it will be addressed through that. You have the grievance procedure. I would love to think, I could be naive. I would love to think that when we get in there, they're going to understand what we're about. They already do. You already have people that will call and message and say that, management is aware of y'all coming in and things like that. So they're aware of the COC and what we say that our mission is going to be. They're not stupid, as stupid as they are. But you've got to hopefully go across the street and say, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to tangle with the workroom floor. We're going to get in the workroom floor and we're going to address it. We would like for you to be with us on that, not just in a memo, not just in some joint process. But we would like for y'all to actively be involved in helping with the toxic working environment. Now, when you deal with that talks about that there's a lot of things that go into it. But when you look at a lot of these screenshots that you see on social media, the things that contribute to a toxic working environment, when you have these whiteboards that say you've got 30 minutes of office time or 45 minutes of office time, you're intentionally creating a toxic environment because there is no such thing. When you say you've got 3 minutes to check your vehicle, you're intentionally creating a hostile working environment because if I go out there and do my checks that I'm supposed to be doing and I don't make it in 3, what's going to happen? I'm probably going to have management address me on that, which is going to create a hostile working environment. When you talk about red line policies, when you talk about 5 minutes of PM office time, when you talk about stationary events, when you talk about all of these things contribute to a hostile working environment. So you're going to have management tell management to quit doing it. Are they going to do that? I would say no, because it's all about the numbers. At the end of the day, it's not about how I feel. It's not about the toxic working environment. They do not care. It's about numbers only. And so when it's about numbers, then you're going to have the toxic working environment. So it's left it up to us to address it, which we will. And to me, that's priority one, is the toxic working environment. When you talk about the suicide rate going up, I think that goes hand in hand. And I'm tired of seeing this happen to my people. And so, we're going to hit the ground running. That's going to be a priority on day one, is addressing the toxic working environment. You would like to think that you would have some kind of rapport with management, that you could go over there and say, look, this is what's happening on the workroom floor. Here's all these things that's going on. Can you correct that? And they're not going to do it because it's about numbers to them. But we'll give it a try. I mean, I'm not going to go in there and just say, hey, I see you all over there. We're not going to talk. I'm going to put these dogs of war on that ass, and then we'll see you on arbitration. We're going to talk, but we're also going to be doing the dogs of war. We're also going to be having those go into those stations where we're done talking. And so.
Man, mine actually, they're so bent out of shape for all the grievances I file. If I ask them, or if I bring up to their attention, hey, this is a violation. You might not want to do it this way. They will do it. There'll be all the more reason to do it for them. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. And look, they're not held accountable for anything. This is the honest to God's truth. I had an individual say the other day that they put in an information request and were put on emergency placement for putting in an information request.
That's
Now
ridiculous.
think about that. Think about that. I put in an information request on, say, you're falsifying clock range. You put me off the clock.
They should labor charge that.
Yeah, like what is labor charge going to do? You know, I agree with you. You know, we need to have more bite as far as labor charges. They'll get involved with information requests and stuff like that, but you're put off the clock for putting in an information request because you're going to challenge something. How long is that going to last? Look at your seatbelts. You had people saying they're off the clock for 3 weeks because of a seatbelt not being put on. 3 weeks with no pay. Now, when is that going to be heard? And so, you know, management right now carries the hammer. And when they're carrying the hammer, this is what happens. When we take over, we will carry the hammer. And when we carry the hammer, there will be hell to pay. When I talk about retribution, when I talk about the consequences of things, all this shit's been building up. And so there will be retribution for the things that they've done to my people. And I will make sure of that. And so when you talk about the dogs of war, people laugh at dogs of war. Wait and see.
Yeah,
Wait and see what's fixing to happen.
Can't wait till the day we carry that hammer.
I got you, brother.
All
It's
right.
coming.
Well, all right. The next question is, what skills or characteristics make a great arbitration advocate?
That's a good one. Everybody's different. You know, I'm very different. When I was in arbitration, I think you have to be quick. You got to know your topic. My cousin, Monty Walton, who lives in Knoxville, he was an arbitration advocate, but not for the Postal Service, but he was for an arbitration advocate for another union. And back in 2012, when I was thinking about doing it, Pete Moss had asked, and I went to Monty, and I said, hey, talk to me about arbitration. You thinking about being an advocate? Yeah. Know the case file. Know the case file. Memorize it if you can. You know the case file. He said, always be honest. Always be honest. He said, as soon as an arbitrator catches you being dishonest, you will always be dishonest, and you will ruin yourself. Always be honest. Know the case file front to back. He said, and always remember, you can do the best that you've ever done and still lose. He said, I remember the best advocate I ever saw. He said, this guy was incredible. He knew everything. He was killing the other side on cross-examination. This guy was amazing. He said, and he lost. He said, because their position was wrong. He said, always remember, you will lose. Even when you do the best you've ever done, you cannot let that get you down, because sometimes we're just wrong. And that's a bitter pill to swallow, brother, because I have lost, I think, 40 cases. I've lost more arbitrations than most advocates will ever do. And that breaks your heart, man, because I can honestly say I've won every hearing. I have never been outworked in any arbitration hearing I've ever been in. And so I have always outworked management because I hate to lose. I hate to lose more than I love to win. And that's the truth. I will kill myself over just, if I lose, it sits with me for a month. Yeah. If I win, you know, you tell your region, hey man, or you tell your branch or the person, you know, if I want a removal, you know, I would let the president give that news. If I ever lost one, I would give it myself because I felt like that was my responsibility. But to me, you got to get the case file down pat. Get it down to memory. You will find your way. You know, as far as objections, everybody's like, man, there's 8,000 objections. Don't worry about that. I probably use 2 or 3. New argument, you know, new evidence. If management tries to get outside their statements or whatever, you know, you'd object to that. It's a new argument. But I had a very different style, you know, and you know, I put a lot of mine on from 8 arbitration, closings that I did, the Memphis miniseries. You heard me cross-examine, question, and stuff like that. But it's the greatest setting. I think, if anybody's thinking about it, do it. It's the greatest setting there is. It's mano a mano. It's you against them in front of somebody who's supposed to be neutral. But I would say, get how you're going to do your closings. If you're going to do an oral closing, I bullet pointed mine. I did not read. I bullet pointed the highlights of what happened, and during the hearing, if something else would come up that I was going to use in my closing, I'd put a C and circle that, so that when I was getting ready for my closing, I would go back through those pages and see that C, and then I'd incorporate that into my closing. But you'd bullet point a closing, so that way you're looking at the arbitrator, looking at management, looking at the grievant, and just rolling. And I would always do a written opening, because the very first arbitration I ever did was in front of Lawrence Roberts, and I did a written opening, and I handed it to him. And my president at the time, Dave Clark, he told Arbitrator Roberts, he's like, this is Corey's very first hearing. He's like, oh, okay. He said, well, if you hand me an opening, just know that, put plenty of contractual language in there, what you're going to be referring to in the JCAM or other handbooks and manuals, put all of that in there for me, and tell me what you're going to do. He said, if you tell me what you're going to do, you better do it. And so I always turn in a written opening. I didn't read I read the written opening, but I didn't just read it and not hand it in. And so, yeah, but you'll find your way. You'll find who you are. And I was very different in the way I approach things. And so, but do it with integrity. I can honestly say, in 100 and however many cases I did, almost 200, I always worked with integrity. I was never dishonest, and I can honestly say that, and that's something I'm proud of.
Man, I know how you feel when you said that you live with them defeats, and it really affects you, because even as a Formal A, man, every time I lose something at Step E, even if I feel like it's unjust, it still hits me hard,
It crushes you, absolutely crushes you. I've been in hearings that I know for a fact we've won and lost, and you're like, what in the hell were y'all looking at or listening to in there? But it is what it is. Ain't nothing you can do about it. You just have to eat that, man. That's tough. But yeah.
All right. So next question. Have you listened to the official NALC podcast, or what are your thoughts on that?
With Renfro?
Yeah.
I tried to, man, but they're so damn boring. God, I can't do it. I would like to have, somebody with a little flair on there, and the problem is, and it's not his fault, the problem is he's never done anything. He has no stories to tell. All he never knows is what he's been told or read. He's not been on the floor. He's not a Formal A long. He is a state president of a state that doesn't have very many members. And, Lou snatched him up and took him to Washington. He's still got Similac on his breath, and he's up there in Washington. And so he just doesn't have any stories to tell about the workroom floor, because he wasn't on it. And it's just so damn boring, and it's hard for me to listen. I have listened, but it's tough for me. And it's not the kid's fault. He just hadn't done anything.
Yeah. All right. So this guy's a new CCA steward, and he's asking, what's your best advice to give a new steward?
You got to learn. You got to learn. I've always said it. When I first started as a shop steward, I had no idea what I was doing. I've never seen a JCAM. Didn't know what an 8190 was. But my branch president, the shop steward at the time was going to go up to be branch president, so he asked me to do it. And I said, absolutely not. I said, man, I don't know the first thing about a JCAM and a national agreement. I wouldn't even know how to file a grievance. And he's like, I'll help you. And I had a guy that I respect come up to me. His name is Kenny Hutchison. And I've known him just about all my life. He was a carrier there. And he said that the other carriers really wished I would do it. and because I was kind of outspoken on some things to management. And he said, you know, we really wish you would consider it. We think you'll do a good job. That was 2006. And so I accepted it. So I told Dave, who went up to be president, I said, I need the JCAM, I need the M41, and I need the M39. He put all of them in a big binder for me, all three, the JCAM, M39, and M41. And so on lunch, I said, what articles am I going to deal with the most? 8 and 16. And so on lunch, I started with 8 and 16, and I read and read and read and read. And then on breaks, I'd read the M39 and the M41. And because I did not want management to ever get over on my people because I was uneducated. And so I'd always say, educate yourself as best you can. Go to as much education as you can. Understand you're not going to make everybody happy. There are things that are going to happen that are going to piss your carries off that you have filed for. You know, it's going to help one and hurt another. Always go by the contract. You always protect that contract at all costs. That's all we've got between us and anarchy. It's that contract. And so you protect that contract at all costs. You know, even if it's a carrier that everybody hates and management's coming after them and the carriers hate them, you protect the contract at all costs. Now, that's all we've got. And so educate yourself. You can work with management. You know, I always talk about I hate them. It's because I've seen what they've done and what they continue to do nationwide. I've got great management at my station. I never file grievances, ever. I go up to them and I say there's a problem. They correct it right there on the spot. And that's how it should be. You know, everything doesn't have to be a grievance. You can go up to management and hopefully they'll listen to you. But like you said, yours, you tell them something, they'll do it anyway. And so it's just, you know, whoever it is. But yeah, educate yourself and protect your people. And if you love us, you'll do that. That's why I always say, if you love the city letter carrier, everything's going to fall into place because you're going to educate yourself. You're going to fight for us, just like you would a family member. And love us, put us first, you're going to succeed. You're going to do a great job. And as a CCA, I appreciate the hell out of that. Somebody just coming in saying, hey, I want to do something. I want to make a change. We're fighting for you, CCAs. Understand that. You're a priority to us. We're fighting for you. You're important to us. And so I appreciate the hell out of you as a CCA stepping up and representing your people.
Yeah, let's call it like it is. They're badasses, right? I think that's what you said.
Badasses, man. Hell yeah, they're fucking badasses.
All right. Now, let's see. We got three more questions. So can you remember a time when you really messed up at work? Or maybe a story about the struggles you had when you were new on the job. For example, driving off with the back gate open, dropping keys down a sewer grate, and customer interactions, stuff that I've done.
Let's see here. Now, I can honestly say, now this doesn't mean I haven't done stupid things, but in 33 years, going on 34, I've never been disciplined. And so, well, the only time I was ever disciplined, I asked for the discipline. And it was when they were all over my station manager about stationary events way back when it first came out with the scanners, and they were saying that we're extending our lunch. And so you'd request the info, and it's just the GPS. There was no vehicles there. And I was like, well, how do you know there's no vehicles? He said, man, they're all over me. I said, look, discipline me, and I'll use, you know, those memos, and we'll beat it. I'm not disciplining you. I said, please, discipline me, and we'll beat it. So he did, and we beat it, and then they got off of him for it. But besides that, I've never been disciplined in 34 years. So I just come to work, do my job, and go home. Let's see, stupid things I've done. I've done some crazy shit before. You know, back when I was pretty strong, I used to fuck with my coworkers, and I'd take one of those hampers and put it up on top of their vehicle. And they'd come out, there's a damn orange hamper on top of the vehicle. You know, just crazy shit like that. But, you know, back in the 90s, you did crazy shit, man. Back in the 90s, it was a free-for-all at the post office. You just did some crazy shit, and it was, you look back now, you're like, my God, how are we still here? and because it was the wild wild west back in the back in the 90s, man. But I pretty much, man, I've kept my nose clean, just come in and do my job and go home.
All right. Now, which is your favorite postal podcast?
I'd say the wrecking ball.
Well, you could say them all. You could say them all, man. All the ones you appreciate.
Yeah, I get something from all of them, man. I get something from all of them. You can never get enough education. You just can't. And so all of them, you're trying to do what you can to help the city letter carrier. I love all of them, man. Anybody that wants to help, I got you. And so, yeah, it's a good thing, man. It really is, to see more and more coming up, trying to educate, doing what they can for their people. Like I said, it's the city letter carrier saving the city letter carrier, and I love it.
Hey,
I absolutely love it.
Earlier, I heard you say that one of your kids, if I'm not mistaken, was a clerk. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Did you pass on that podcast, the clerk one?
APWU?
Yeah. Did you pass that down?
Reed's a different bird, man.
Oh, okay.
Reed's something else, man. That's my guy there, man. We have a good time. He'll come over and sit in my case, and we just shoot the shit, man. We have a good damn time.
A podcast is not for everyone, I guess.
No, hell, I never listened to any of them before I started mine. I never listened to a podcast. That's the reason they asked me to do one. I was like, what the fuck do I even do?
Hey, I think you were the introduction to podcasts for almost everyone I know that currently listens to podcasts.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Me. From Nashville, Tennessee, just a city letter carrier. That's nuts, man.
Well, we appreciate the hell out of you. So I got one more though. Since this is an investigative interview, I just got to ask: is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'll always add something. But if I could say one thing to the city letter carriers, keep your head up. We're taking over this thing next year. We're taking over this thing and putting the city letter carrier first. And I know it seems like this has been going on for 15 years with Renfro. It seems like it's been going on for a lifetime, how sorry this union has become. And we're going to change things. I promise that. I give you my word. Keep your head up. And if you could do one thing, it's educate yourself and be ready. Educate yourself and be ready, because when we take over, we're going to hit the ground running, and we need as much help as possible. We're not these that are doing it on our own, that have said, hey, I can run on my own and do it by myself. That is not us. We need as much help as possible. If we're going to do what we need to do. And that comes from the ground floor up. And so just educate yourself, get yourself ready. And because when we take over, we're looking for badasses to help. And so, but that's the one thing, man. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. Hope is coming. And that's what we're about. So I can't wait. Every day, it seems like a year, because it won't get here fast enough. But I can't wait to get in there and get going. And I appreciate all the questions and stuff. Good ones, bad ones.
Hey, I thought it was pretty fun today.
Absolutely, man. You can have me on again. I'll answer some more. No question too tough.
All right, it was good having you, Corey.
I appreciate the time, man. I appreciate what you're doing too, man. I think there needs to be 100 more just like you.
All right. Now that one was a marathon. Hopefully you guys can listen to that all in one go. But yeah, that was a pretty fun one. And I look forward to next month. Well, technically it's going to be in January. We're going to have David Grosskopf on. And you guys can do just like you've always done. Submit any question you want to David Grosskopf. He's going to be our Q&A for January. Now, hopefully you learned something valuable today. And as always, have a good day.
out to the Roseville Wrecking Ball. He is an Article 8 scholar, and thank God. We need Article 8 scholars right now. The Grievous Genius and the Roseville Wrecking Ball doing amazing work.
Brothers and sisters, this guy is good, man. He's fucking good.
And my boy Joshua, he killed it. Man, he's lockstep right now. He's killing it.
You would think this guy has been around for 30 fucking years. That's how good he is. Yeah, it's like he wrote the contract.